Okay, so if I'm working for a general contractor, or if I'm a handyman and I'm working and I do get injured on the job at your home, who do I sue? Do I sue the general contractor that hired me?
Good question.
Because the general contractor, I would imagine, is supposed to provide me with a safe environment in which to work. Or do I sue the homeowner, or am I just suing everybody?
So I guess let's start out with, in your scenario, are you saying that that person was an employee of the general contractor or a subcontractor?
The person's Oh, that's a good question. Well, let's look at both. Let's say a general contractor will sub out different work for plumbing, for roofing, for windows, things like that, right?
Yeah. So, Amanda, why don't you kind of take the ball with that one?
Sure. So if you're working for a subcontractor and the general contractor hires, then obviously you would not be able to sue your own employer. So you wouldn't be able to sue the subcontractor.
Wait, why can't you sue your own employer? If I'm working, let's say someone, the subcontractor is a roofer, and he says, okay, go on the roof and put the tiles, and that's your job. I go up there and I fall through, whatever, however people get hurt, right? Why can't I sue my employer for setting me up there?
Go ahead, Amanda.
So that's what we have workers' compensation for.
Okay.
And under the law, you're not entitled to sue your own employer.
So a decision was made many years ago to have what we call workers' compensation.
Sure.
And the idea was whether or not you were negligent or not, whether your employer or co-employees were negligent or not, you would be able to still recover lost wages and also medical benefits.
From whom?
From your own employer.
Okay.
So there was a trade-off. The trade-off was you're not going to be able to sue your own employer. You're not going to be able to sue your co-employees for the negligence. But what we're going to let you do is, even if you are negligent, you'll still be able to recover monetary compensation for being out of work, for some lost wages, and also for medical expense.
So that's the extent of the damages that the employer will have to, and they generally have insurance for that.
Yeah, there's workers' compensation insurance, so they have it.
Sure.
So now you gave up. What did you give up in that exchange when it was really done?
You gave up the right to a larger reward for your pain.
Right, for your pain and suffering. And but you didn't give up the right to bring that claim against maybe a third party, somebody that's not your employer.
Okay, so even though you're going to collect workers' comp benefits, right, from your employer, it doesn't stop you from suing either the homeowner or the general contractor.
Correct. Those would be the two people generally who you would sue in that circumstance.
Okay, so you can receive the benefits of compensation and medical relief from the workers' comp policy, and at the same time you can sue for pain and suffering and other issues.
If there's a third party.
So
sometimes what happens is, let's give the scenario that you just gave.
Right.
You go onto the site and your employer is the contractor. There is no other contractors. Your employer is the only contractor.
Right.
And your employer tells you, all right, go up on the roof there and do something, and you get hurt. Okay? Even if your employer is negligent there, let's say your employer went ahead and didn't give you the proper safety device. In that case, you still couldn't sue your employer. Now, the question becomes, in that scenario, is would there be anybody else you can potentially bring a claim against? And the answer is maybe. And it's really above probably your ability to assess that, because you don't know and don't understand what the law says. You do not understand what the definitions are in terms of...
Are there laws that the contractors have to have insurance to cover their employees' accidents?
Yes. Actually,
they have to have workers' comp insurance.
Yes, an employer. Now there are some exceptions to it. If you're self-employed, okay, and you literally don't have any employees, you're it, okay. But in general, okay, the answer to that question is yes. You should have workers' comp insurance.
By law, they have to.
Yes, and if you don't, very stiff penalties. So, we have people that have come to us in the past that, for whatever reasons, didn't have it at all or failed to cover a particular employee. And now they come to us And now what happens is compensation, if they should have had it, will pay comp benefits to that person potentially. But there's tremendous fines now against the employer who did not otherwise have it.
Fines from whom? The state?
Yes.
Okay, but it doesn't help me because if I get hurt on the job, I can't sue my employer.
Well, you can't sue your employer
if they have insurance.
Right.
But if they don't, I can?
No.
Oh.
You still can't, even if they don't have insurance. Now, there are exceptions to the exceptions.
So if they get fined, do I get any of that money?
Well, what'll happen is
fined?
yes. What'll happen is sometimes. Well, let me put it this way. What'll happen is if you should have had them insured and you didn't,
right?
There's provisions under the workers' compensation law that that individual will get compensated. There's a fund, okay. But now what happens is you get the wrath of the system because you failed to have the insurance in place,
right?
And the system now had to pick that up for you. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's not a place where you want to be, David. And I would tell any employer, don't put yourself in that spot. Just don't. And I've had many cases where I've had to help people,
right?
Where they've either made mistakes, didn't have it in place, or they kind of thought, well, I'll just do this one job. I have employees, but I'll just do this one job, and I won't have workers' comp. Don't do it. And even if you in a situation where you're going to be really careful, where you may think and say, you know what? These are really subcontractors, and you want to call them subcontractors.
Right.
But it turns out that they're really not subcontractors because maybe, let's say, you're controlling their time. They only work for you, and you're controlling their efforts. Under the law may say, you know what? You really were their employer.